Good morning, my lovely peaches. I'm here in front of my closed curtain. How are you? Stick you here for a sec. And hopefully you won't tumble down. This. So I can open my curtain. How are you? So I was just having a thought that I thought I would share. So yesterday I was watching, gosh, I really should have checked the source, but I don't remember the creator who made the video, and I actually don't remember the person who did the crime. Let me think. It was a woman. Was it Dr. Grande?
Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Amber Andrews? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only needs more Satan. 8 because it involved 3 6s. The wedding was held in a low-light environment, and the attendees wore dark clothing. The wedding possessed an unusual but distinct theme: darkness, destruction, and death. The only thing that was missing was dismemberment, although it would get there eventually.
Dr. Grande talking about this woman who murdered her husband, and apparently, let's see. Hello, my lovely peaches. How are you? Okay, so apparently this murder was so horrific. So what I said in one video is I'm not a true crime junkie, and in fact I am ultra sensitive to many things. And oh, look how cool, there's lights on my window back there and I'm just seeing them. They're partially blocked, but anyway, I just can't handle, if it has to do with children, like the Lori Vallow thing, ugh. And if it's ultra gruesome, like Koberger, allegedly. It's not that I'm not going to watch those things at all, but the Take Care of Maya trial that Peter Tragos, lawyer, has been, I only watched basically the verdict, because I just can't sit there listening to horrific things happening to kids, young people. There's just certain things that are just way too awful. But, well, I thought I would try to find it, but I don't want to make this a super long video, and I don't want to take a lot of time editing. Yesterday, I said I wasn't going to make another video. I made that quick 6-minute video or whatever. And then the 2 minutes at the end with Jeffrey Lacasse, I spent hours on, because I didn't like the way I had edited it the first time. If you see the first video where it's at the end of the clip, you'll see that it was there was just little things that just irked me. So I re-edited it, and I redid all those emojis. And if you watch the short version, where it's just Jeffrey sitting there in the police interview room alone for a couple minutes, and you see him reading his notes, and you see his brain, and I threw up the emojis of the things that he was probably thinking about, all the suspicious stuff. Anyway, the thing I was really trying to say was that, so there was this woman that I was watching very briefly a thing about yesterday, where I looked at it so briefly. Oh yes, it was Dr. Grande. I actually didn't even watch the video. I just went through the transcript and was scrolling through, because I just didn't want to hear some extremely ultra gory thing. And ultimately that's what it was, that it had to do with a murder, and it had to do with a reciprocating saw and 25 pieces of a okay, so
Amber Andrews and Justin Hammer were convicted of murdering her ex-husband. So, like I said, I didn't watch it because I just couldn't. It's too gruesome. But apparently the motive was to get custody of the kid. Apparently he had one full custody because she probably was a ratchet bitch. And so she got her boyfriend to murder him, but she lured him to Oklahoma under the pretense of getting back with him. So he wanted to get back with her, and she had him killed. She killed him because he had full custody. In this video, I talk about how some crimes we get fascinated and obsessed with.
It's like a drug.
And other crimes that are even more horrific, and the person is even more evil, and we don't care, really. It's just interesting.
the whole reason why I wanted to make this video was because last night I was watching that and I was thinking about that, like, holy taki mushrooms. You know, you have people out here who they themselves, I don't know if she did it or I think she got her boyfriend to do it, but there's people like, what was that awful shabusiness lady? Disgusting. That wasn't even her real last name, but whatever. She was horrific. So, like, the point I'm trying to get at is I genuinely am on Wendy arrest watch. Every day I'm hoping today's the day this skanky Miami bitch is going to get her ass back to Tallahassee.
So I, in particular, can't stand when people insult someone's looks because they don't have an intellectual argument or reason. And this video is discussing looks and, well, you know, they say the eyes are the windows to the soul. Look at hers, the colored contacts. Photoshopped and fake. And she's got no depth, no iris. So I'm not trying to insult her looks. Kind of like Amber Heard used to be so gorgeous to me. And then I learned about who she was as a human being. And that changed quite a bit.
My opinion of her looks
And
so-called beauty.
Whether you think Wendy is beautiful, average, or whatever, that's not the point. The point is that there's something about a person who appears as if they're trying to be like part of society, unlike the Amber Andrews or maybe that shabusiness lady, where they go out of their way to look kind of like a misfit. So people don't feel it's as fascinating, I guess, as someone like Wendy, who, according to Jeff Lacasse, was extremely concerned with appearances and does seem to be someone who wanted to be part of society in a kind of way that you would not think they would turn around and do murder. This is also the Facebook profile pic photo that Jeffrey Lacasse said the night before Dan's murder. She changed her profile pic for the first time, and he thought that that was weird and bizarre, especially because he said this picture was photoshopped. If you zoom in, her eyes, again, have no iris. Her teeth are blurry. And he said her dad did it, and that he thought it was something that she would do because she thought she'd be in the news the next day. Jeff also mentioned his friends with kids pointed out she looks narcissistic here because she looks good, but the kids didn't apparently look that great. And here she is looking a lot more wholesome, I guess, a different time of her life. And here she is looking more like someone you might think of as a pretentious elitist. But if she was nice, I would probably say, yeah, she's a pretty woman.
And it just kind of interests me, like, I wonder why, in a way, it's like we're fascinated with someone like that when there are literally people out there chopping up people. Like Erin Peterson, she's just straight up feeding people poisonous mushrooms, allegedly. you know, there's so much crime. There's so much horrific stuff. There's so many disturbed, deeply, deeply, deeply troubling, troublesome people who should not be walking around free. And I think there's something about like the insidiousness of someone who appears to be all together, appears to be part of a functioning society. You know, the lady that did the bad crime with the chopping up of the ex, not to say in any way, caveat and disclaimer, tattoos do not make you a bad person, but she had like tattoos all over, and that is a different aesthetic and a different kind of social personality than someone like Wendy Adelson, who presents all clean cut and good girl and, oh, I'm so smart and I'm just such a part of society and I'm so like elitist and pretentious. Like I would never, you know, and in a way she would never. She would, you know, she would get somebody else to do it. Get somebody else to do it. So I'm just like making a comment and sort of opening up a thought of myself that says, why is it more fascinating? Is it because of the fact that somebody looks clean and part of society, part of, you know, decent, what's the word I'm looking for? Conformists, people who do what they're supposed to, people who get tattoos or piercings and stuff like that. In my mind, they typically are people who are happy to go against a societal norm. And I know there's a ton of prejudice that goes along with that. If you're willing to not, you know, belong in conventional society, a lot of people automatically assume that makes you a criminal, or they automatically assume you would be willing to do something shady. Whereas somebody who looks the part, who's all clean cut and, you know, appears to be someone who does try to fit in, somebody who is not going against social norms, somebody who's not unconventional. When someone like that does a crime that's, you know, not petty, a violent crime, a murder, it seems, I guess, more cognitive dissonance. Our brains can't handle it. It's like, oh, well, somebody with tats, yeah, okay, you don't chop up her egg, yeah, okay. It just struck me last night how different people doing different crimes are put on these different scales of interest and fascination. And, you know, obviously we've got the white girl tears, the white woman tears, and, you know, there's a lot of white women out there who are terrible, who use their societal privilege to do awful things and to think that they can get away with it. And maybe that's part of it as well. Like, well, somebody who's all tatted up and a biker gang and something like that, you know, they've already decided they don't care that much about what society thinks of them, or certain society, because obviously everybody's part of society and the biker gang is part of society. But, you know, there's a certain segment, let's say, that some people try to cater to please, and other people are less concerned about. And I don't know, I just wanted to put this out there. Like, it's kind of a fascinating discussion that someone like Wendy Adelson garners so much fascination, cracking knuckles, fascination and curiosity and like obsession. I want this bitch to go down. Well, actually, I guess I want her to go up, because I want her to go back up to Tallahassee. So those are my thoughts for today. I just thought it was interesting. And of course, if you were to broach into, racism and social class and financial standing and all of that stuff. And yes, obviously people are more fascinated when someone commits a crime, someone who seems to have absolutely no reason or need, like there are people who commit crimes, and I, anyway, have a lot of sympathy because of their circumstance. And a lot of people live in areas where it's not safe, and there are a lot of people who are good people who just want to do good things, but where they happen to live puts them in a position where they have little options, and they go towards crime because it's just circumstances, not character. And of course there's people who are born into those type of environments and they manage not to do it, but people who are born into, like that guy who was born into the KKK and his dad was like the head of some department or whatever, and some segment area, and he went off to college. Shockingly, his father allowed him to go to a regular college, and he made friends with all kinds of people, and he realized, this is fucking crazy. I shouldn't be racist at all. And told his dad. But that is such a rare circumstance. So I think when you see somebody like Wendy, who is wealthy, she doesn't have to do crime to make money. She's not forced into crime because of her circumstances. And I understand it's hard to co-parent your children. And to be honest, the reason that I left California back in 2014. No shit, it wasn't 2014. It was 2007. 2007, I moved back. And I missed my family a lot. And I'm on the East Coast. And one of the biggest reasons that I actually had was, I don't want to end up meeting a guy who lives out there, have children, and then I'm basically trapped. Exactly that scenario. I knew if I have kids with somebody who lives in California, unless he agrees to move to my home state, I will never be allowed to leave with my kids, and I'm going to end up trapped there. And even if he did agree to move to my home state, just like I had chosen to move out of my home state, I got tired of it and I missed it and I wanted to go back. So I knew that even if he had agreed at some point, he might start to miss his home state, his hometown friends, his parents, his family, whoever might be there. He might long to raise his children where he grew up. And I didn't want to have to deal with those battles. And side note, my baby's daddy, his hometown is the same as mine. Although now he doesn't live here anymore and his parents did move away, but only an hour away. And then his dad passed away, but this is still ultimately his hometown though. And I had a friend who, at the time, she started dating a man. And this was back in California. And so she starts dating this guy, and he tells her, well, I have a kid. I don't have a relationship with this kid. I'm in court right now because 3 years ago, I had a one-night stand with somebody, or like, I don't know if it was a one-night stand or like a week fling or whatever, but it was just like a brief fling, no emotional attachment. And then like 3 years later, he hears from her and she's like, hey, remember we fucked? Well, I had a baby, you the daddy, and I'm moving to Florida. Funny, Florida. And he said, what the fuck? Oh, no, you're not. He took this bitch to court, and she lost her petition to move to Florida. Now, why the fuck she decided to tell this motherfucker, hey, I got a kid and it's yours and I'm taking her, I don't know. Like, I guess she wanted child support, or I don't know. She was not that, but whatever. She lost her petition and she ended up trapped and had to stay in California. Now, on an ironic twist, my friend, she's not my friend anymore, but she married the guy, had 2 kids with him. She's from the East Coast. Had 2 kids with this guy, the guy who fought in court for a long time to get access to his daughter, who then, according to her, every time he had the daughter for a week, he'd leave her with his mom. But she divorced this guy and moved back to the East Coast with her 2 kids. He didn't fight her. I don't know what, like, it's so bizarre to me the way that whole turned out, because he had a one-night stand with somebody who he then fought in court after finding out like 2-3 years later, hey, by the way, you have a kid you didn't even know about with somebody you don't even care about. And he fought like hell for this daughter. Then he married a woman, had 2 kids, raised those daughters from birth. A motherfucker was like, bye. Take them. I don't know what happened. Like, we lost contact because I had moved back to the East Coast before she did. And then when she came back, it was just all kinds of crazy. She was emotionally, she was a doozy, let's just say. And I realized this girl she's a drain on my emotions. Like, it was never about me. It was always about her and her effed up drama. Anyway, I just think that, yeah. So back in the day before I had kids, yeah, I thought about that. I thought a lot about that. Like, if I have children with someone who either they live in California or their home state, wherever it is not the same as mine, then I'm going to be in a really tricky situation, and I may end up literally trapped somewhere I don't want to be because of my children. Now, I mean, it's, you know, there are differences. I mean, like, my other friend, her and her husband, they broke up, and she agreed, you know, he got it. So she was also in California. She's not in California anymore, but she agreed. Okay, so her ex was struggling and didn't have money, and I mean, it was I'm not going to tell her whole thing, but basically he was problematic in my mind. And he said, hey, I got a job offer, but it's literally across the country. So do you mind if I move? And she said, okay. So now the father of her son now lives across the country, and, you know, she'll send her son for a week or a month or whatever. But I personally, I would have been like, you better send money. You can't be here, fine, but you better send some money, motherfucker. He's off, he gone. He's like, I gotta go so I can make money. And then he goes and he doesn't send money. But whatever, it's not my business, not my life. And I'm not really judging. I'm just saying, like, it ain't for me. But hey, it's you know, that's what I'm saying. Dan Markel, he was like, no way. I'm not letting you take my children 9 hours away. I want to actively be in their life. There's no way you can actively be in somebody's life on a regular basis and raise them if they live 9 hours away from you. And you might hear somebody shoveling outside. There's some scraping because it's snowing. I just wanted to jump in this next day and add a couple of thoughts to clarify some of the little stories I was telling. One is that whose ex-husband moved all the way to another state. They're best friends. So I kind of complained about it, like, I couldn't handle that unless he was giving me money. But for her, you know, it's hard. But they're best friends. They talk multiple times a day. So, okay, weigh the frozen pond. Let's see, I'm going to look through my notes. No, the point is that every relationship that I know of where two people had a baby or more than one baby and then they're no longer together and they need to figure out how to co-parent, every single situation I know of is different somehow. They're all unique. And, you know, like my baby's daddy had a friend who had a baby with somebody and they all lived local, but then they broke up and then the woman got with another man. Then that man and her wanted to move across the country. And so they asked, you know, do you mind if we move across the country? And he said, well, actually, not only do I not mind, I'll go get an apartment. And then that way you guys can move with our daughter and I'll also move. And then I'm okay living, I think it was like San Francisco. I think they were in New York and they wanted to move to San Francisco. And he was like, you know, I don't really have anything tying me here to New York, so I'm down. So they all moved. He moved separately by himself to get an apartment so he could be near his daughter. And he was okay with it. So there's that scenario. Then I had another friend who was married, had a baby, and when the baby was 9 months old, she left, like literally diaper bag, grab, run out with the baby. She felt he was so abusive, and yet he was dead set on being completely involved with the baby. So from the time the baby was 9 months old, he was granted 50-50 custody, and she literally had to give her 9-month-old for a whole week to the father. And so for the first, well, they still do it. The kid is now 15 years old. And I know it because it's a friend of my son, although they've now moved not too far away, but like an hour away. So, you know, they don't see them as often. But so anyway, the story was that they lived in the town I lived in, and I met them when the kid was a kindergartner. And she told me, you know, we have week on, week off. And they both lived in the same town as we live in. And then she told me over the years, like, stories, and the ex drags her to court all the time, and he's always trying to do this or that. Then she was dating a new man. I think by the time I met her, she already had him as a boyfriend. And then, so then she was living with the boyfriend for a long time, and they got married. They have a baby now. Their baby is like 7. Okay, and all throughout this, she still was dealing with every other week. Her son had to go stay, even after he had a brother, a baby brother and everything. I mean, this is just part of blended families, right? The older son had to go stay with his dad every other week for the week. And then her and her husband, finally, they were saving up for years, and they bought a house, and the house is an hour away. Well, she wanted to enroll her son in school an hour away. Now, I actually, even though I don't like that dad, and I think he's a narcissist and really problematic, I agreed at least that she was wrong in this, that she wanted him to go from every other week with his son, which he'd been doing literally since the baby was 9 months old. And now he was, I don't know, 10 or 12 or whatever. And she was like, you can have him every other weekend. And I'm like, okay, that's absurd. And the judge also said no. And not only did the judge say no, the judge said, you're not allowed to take your son out of the school system that he's in because you bought a house. The father lives in town, and these are the arrangements. The arrangements are your son goes to this school district here, and you have these arrangements. So she ended up having, for like 2 years, to drive like 4 hours every day on Monday through Friday, because she would wake up, drive her son an hour to school, drive the hour back home, then do whatever she had to do, then go back an hour to pick him up, then come back an hour to go home. And she did that for like 2 years. Side note, other thing, I have a friend who's voluntarily doing that with her own daughter because her daughter didn't want to go to the school in town. There's literally a school across the street, plus like 5 other schools this girl could have chosen. She could have got bused to, or like 10-minute ride, 20-minute ride. But the girl said no, she wanted to go to this other school an hour away. So her mom, one of my best friends, is okay with, I will drive you to school an hour, then drive home, then literally, like, people are quite different from each other, because I'm like, oh, hail to the motherfucking no. Spend 4 hours a day in the car? Are you kidding? Anyway, so back to the friend with the ex. So that's what she was doing, because she was like, well, we bought this house, and I mean, there was, I think 2020 was in there, and so there was like a little, maybe it wasn't 2 years, maybe it was 1 year, because I think there was like some relief when everything closed down and school was remote. But then when it went back to school, you know, she was doing that. So anyway, after all of that, the motherfucker finally bought a house an hour up there. So now the father lives up there, and the kid goes to school up there, and I don't know if the father's, I think he might still have his business down here, because, so that, it's like, it's kind of funny, because I became friends with the mom, but I thought the dad was super creepy, and then my ex became friends with the dad, and he's also friendly with the mom. I think the dad is super creepy, and I don't ever want to have anything to do with him. So I told the kids, like, I'll only hang out with, like, we can only do stuff with your friend when he's with the mom, because I'm not going to deal with the dad. So, and then I didn't have a car. I still don't have a car. So when they moved, and then when I did have that car briefly, it was like I said, I didn't want to drive it an hour, 2 hours. So I haven't been up there. And anyway, you know, that's just another story about exes and how they be different. And, you know, that man drug her back and forth to court. And in fact, oh, another thing I didn't mention about it was there was a long time, and I don't know if that's the case anymore. I've kind of lost touch with them, but there was a good chunk of years in there where the way that they did like custody handoff was at the fucking police station, because there was an argument they had one time at a soccer practice or whatever it was, and she wanted to get a restraining order, and they were like, or I don't know if there was a restraining order or not, but she was like, I am not going to be handing my kid off to this motherfucker. You know, I don't feel safe around him. And so they had to do it at the police station every week. It's just so sad what people go through. And then, you know, I have another person I know who they broke up. She broke up with the husband, and during the marriage, the man acted like he was so involved with all this stuff. And then it was like, she was like, it's over. And he was like, poof. Then, you know, she didn't get any child support, you know, no time, you know, and then it's been years and years and years now. So yeah, he stops around here and there. He shows up to birthdays and things, and, you know, it's not like he's completely absent, but he has been largely absent. You know, the kids love him, but they also just kind of accept, like, he has a different girlfriend every few years. He gets real serious, moves in with her. He moved to this state next door, then came back, then moved that one, you know, and it's just like, and she, the mom, got into a long-term relationship like a year after the marriage broke up, and that her and that person have been together for, you know, 15 years or whatever. So her children, who are grown now, they just identify that her man as their dad, and they know that they know their real dad is their dad, and they have some kind of relationship with him, but it's just, you know, not the same. And anyway, I just wanted to add some just some different versions of people that I know of who, you have kids with somebody and then it doesn't work out. And there's so many versions. There's so many versions of how people manage to co-parent or not co-parent. And it's just really sad and terrible to throw murder up in there when it's super not necessary. And, you lose your kids anyway. At the end of the day, you rob your children of the parent they had, and then you rob them of you too. Because murder? Bad choices lead to bad consequences. I sympathize, though. I do sympathize, and I understand with Wendy Adelson, like, the idea was that they were just going to go there for a semester. That's what Jeffrey Lacoste said. They were just going to go there for a semester, and then they got trapped. And I understand being really unhappy about that. And sometimes we make choices not knowing how it's going to we always make choices not knowing how it's going to unfold, hoping it's going to be one way. And much more common than not, much more often than not, I think, people make the wrong choices. See, we have the power to make up our own reasons, and in that is genuinely our superpower. You get to decide what matters to you and why, and then you get to craft your choices around that. So like Wendy Adelson, she obviously had a long list of things that mattered to her, and she had a long list of reasons, and then she had, I guess, this is kind of funny. The other day, I was like snuggling with my son as he was drifting off to sleep, and he said something, and I thought he said, "Weigh the frozen pond." Weigh the frozen pond. And I said, weigh the frozen pond? That would be difficult. And then he said, weigh the pros and cons. And I just thought that was like really funny. Weigh the frozen pond. I wanted to like take that and do something with it. So Wendy Adelson, she weighed the frozen pond in her mind of the pros and cons, and she was like, murder. Not murder. Kill this motherfucker. And then I can do whatever I want. I can go where I want. I can raise them how I want. I can dress them in Hitler Youth costume. No, she did. She could feed them McDonald's. She could not have to worry about being kosher. Apparently, there was a big argument at their wedding, and the reason for the argument had to do with the kosher food, because she was marrying a devout Jewish practicing person that her mother found for her on JDate, which is Jewish dating site. And I don't know, it seems to me if you were going to go on a Jewish dating site to find a Jewish person, you probably care about the religion, right? Like if you're not religious, if you're secular, and if you don't practice, and if you're not a practicing practitioner, why do you care? I mean, I get it. I get that some people might say, well, I'm Jewish. I celebrate Hanukkah and Passover. And, just like some people, they only celebrate Christmas and Easter, and then they go to church twice a year, but they are Catholic. So I get it. Like you might want to have someone in the same faith as you, but you also want to have somebody at the same level, right? If you're somebody who goes to church or to temple 2 or 3 times a year and you don't really care about the rules and all that stuff, do you, boo? God don't mind. That's what she told me. No, but anyway, you know what I'm saying? Like, why would you? And hey, I get it. People change their minds, okay? But at the wedding, apparently there was a big argument because Wendy and her family decided kosher style was good enough, not kosher. Honestly, that makes no sense to me, because it's like, okay, I'm vegan. So if somebody said, oh, well, it's vegan style, it's not really vegan, what does that mean? Right? What does it mean for something to be in the style of it, but not be it? Like Tex-Mex, it's stylized like Mexican, but it's not really Mexican, it's American. I don't know. Anyway, so that was a big issue at their wedding. And I think food is a fundamental thing. That's one of the reasons why I feel, if and when I start to date someone, I mean, I have contemplated endlessly, would I date somebody who's not vegan? And one of the things I often think about is, well, eating is such a basic, like multiple times a day, every day kind of thing. Everything centers around eating. I don't want meat and dairy up in my house. And I don't want somebody who feels like, well, if I can't have that up in my house, I'm somehow, being restricted. I don't want that. So my ex, my baby's daddy, he's not vegan, but he was completely okay with, I don't need to have meat and dairy in my house. He's like a very rare occasional meat eater. When he'd go out with his friends, he'd order something, or he used to go weekly to play music, jam, and then they'd go get something. And so he always felt like, well, if I'm at lunch, at work, or out with my friends, I can get meat then. He wasn't like my brother, who's like, literally every meal has to have some kind of meat in it. So this got a little long and tangent-y. I'm just saying it is kind of fascinating, and, bringing it back to the point I was saying at the beginning of the video, maybe that is really part of why it's more ultra fascinating, because to see somebody who appears as if they want to be part of a certain type of conventional society, and they act like they are, and then you find out, oh, you duplicitous bitch. And, maybe that's part of it. Like, people who live on the edge of society, or who are unafraid to go against social norms, it's less shocking, I suppose, when they do something out of social norms than somebody who seems to, be a part of a certain type of whatever group. And then you find out, oh, you're not just some nice law professor with kids who's just doing their thing. You are plotting and scheming, and you are an unindicted co-conspirator, and you would rather take somebody's life, your children's father, like not just somebody, not some random dude, your own, like, to me, is flesh and blood, because this is the father of your children. They are connected to you forever. And that sucks for some people, especially when you have babies with people you don't want to. I get it. I mean, I had a few exes that I was like, I would definitely have an abortion if I got pregnant by this motherfucker. And I had a lot of reproductive issues, and, I did heal them all through my diet, veganism, and also emotional and mental healing. But I had a few guys that I was involved with at some point where I was like, there is no way I will ever bring a baby of this person's into the world. And I'm very pro-choice. I'm 100% pro-choice, but personally for me, I would never want to make that choice. And so when I had those realizations, I was like, I think I need to break up with this motherfucker. Why would I be dating somebody who would literally kill your child? If I got impregnated, I would be like, scrape, no. Devil child, no. I'm not going to be attached to you for the rest of my life. Are you crazy? But then there's people who they had the baby. Maybe they were in love. Or maybe they were in love with the circumstances. See, that's what I do believe about Wendy, that I believe that she, in my opinion, allegedly, appears as if I think she was pretentious and elitist and she was all about appearances and had no concern about the actual content of her relationship, compatibility. Do me and this man actually get along? Are we aligned? Do we want the same things? Do we want to raise our children the same way? Do we want to even live in the same place? Like, these are things that are so fundamental that you have to just, in my opinion, you need to be discussing these things before you walk down the aisle. And if you get engaged, but then you realize after you've gotten engaged, not compatible, not compatible, not compatible, guess what? You break up. That's what I did. Yes. Okay, I'm going to leave that here. That was just sort of a early morning thoughts, rambling thoughts with Kat, contemplating things. And, you know, I don't think anything I've said is particularly earth-shatteringly new. It's kind of like, well, duh. People who are outside of social norms are not as... It's not as shocking when they do something outside of social norms. And somebody who appears to be part of a certain type of society, it's just like, what? I mean, you know, it's so sad and awful. Like, her children are almost the same exact ages as mine. And I think her kids are either 13 and 14 or 15 and 13, something like that. And it's like 5 years from now, she would have had her freedom. I mean, I'm not saying like it would have been nice for her to move 8 hours away when the kids, let's say they turn 18 or whatever, or they're done with high school, you know. But technically, once her children turned 18, she could have then moved down to Miami. You know, it's not like a life sentence, like murdering somebody and being in jail and like, I mean, I don't know, going to yoga and lunch with your girlfriends and having, you know, stock the bar parties and shit like that. That sounds a lot better to me than being stuck in a jail forever. Like, girl, you wade that frozen pond wrong. Because the pros that you put in your column for murder, woo, you forgot about the cons. All right, guys, my foot is falling asleep. I have a ton of work to do. I have a new client. I have 2 new clients, actually, I'm so excited about. And that may mean less videos because now I have clients and they're all like kind of light as far as what they each have me doing, which is why I'm able to have clients. But the newest client I have may grow, and I'm excited about that. So I might have to put a pause on putting out videos. I mean, I've been kind of putting out videos almost every day, and I am intentionally trying to get monetized. I'm hoping that it'll be a better outcome than the other time. You know, it's so frustrating. I spent years working on my other channel and years trying to get monetized. And I finally got monetized. I felt like this is such an accomplishment. I was so excited about finally being able to have memberships, maybe getting some super chats during lives, all kinds of stuff. And then they just pulled that shit out. We're like, nah, we think you're a little too sexy. Which is pretty fucking funny because I'm like sweats for life kind of girl. I am no makeup. I am like all natural. And it's just pretty fucking hilarious. Not hilarious that there are girls out here who have their tits out practically. They got their asses twerking. They are wearing almost nothing. And yet me dancing and stretching in my living room. So anyway, I have no idea. I think I've been chatting for about a half an hour, and we'll see you later. Bye. I'm gonna make a better outro than this.
My son bought himself this very cool blacklight flashlight.
Something very cool. Just look what it does to my painting.